Now that we have common language and notation, it's time to actually introduce the idea of probability. In general, we're always going to understand the probability of A to be between 0 and 1. Traditionally, we write probabilities as decimals or as proportions. We'll also talk about them as percentage, but we'll default back to this proportion idea. So for instance, if I write, what's the probability I get a heads when I flip a coin one time, we have this common understanding that's about 50%, or 1 and 2. Now, when I write that, I can write it as 1 over 2, I can write it as 0.5, I can also write it as 50%. We're going to try to always default back to that 0.5 there. Now, flipping a coin once and having a 50% chance of getting heads makes a lot of sense, but let's talk about what if I flip the coin more than once. So, for instance, if I flip a coin 2 times, and I want to go ahead and understand, well, what are the chances I get a heads? What are the chances I get a tails? Then what I can do is I can actually go ahead and list out my different options. That is, I know if I flip a coin 2 times, there's a chance I get heads. Maybe I get heads and tails. Maybe I get tails and heads, and maybe I get 2 tails. If I go ahead and I put little braces around this, remember this is called a sample space. And it allows me to list all my different possible options. Now, each of these options are actually equally likely, which makes this really straightforward to do. That is, if I want the probability I flip a coin 2 times and I get heads both times, well, there's only one option that gives me that, so it'd be 1 over the 4 total options in the sample space. So that is 1 over 4. Now, once again, this only works because each of these options are equally likely, but it's helpful. So, in the case where I have equally likely possible outcomes, I can calculate the probability of A by taking the number of outcomes in A and dividing it by the number of outcomes in the sample space. So, for instance, if I wanted to know what is the probability I get 1 heads out of flipping a coin 2 times, I could go ahead and count it up. Now, I want outcomes that have at least 1 heads. Sorry, not at least, exactly 1 heads. So when I look at this outcome here has 1 heads, and this outcome here has 1 heads. That tells me then that I have 2 possible outcomes that have 1 heads out of a total of 4 outcomes in my sample space. This means I have half, or 0.5. So there's a 50% chance that if I flip a coin twice, I get exactly 1 heads there somehow. Let's do one more just to make sure we're understanding it here. I want to know what's the probability I get no tails. So go ahead and pause the video, see if you can figure out, and then come back to it. Now, I'm hoping here that we see we have 4 total options, and in reality, when I look at it, there's only one option that has no tails, and that is this one here that's heads. So, I have 1 out of 4, or 0.25, or 25% chance of getting absolutely no tails in there. Now, this goes ahead and introduces us to another concept, which is, okay, so no tails versus having at least 1 tails, and that's what we'll be talking about in the next video.